All right, almost. I think we're live, Don. Let's see. Hmm, almost. Yes, I think we are live. All right.
And you're recording it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Jeannette, also known as Ms.FitVegan, here with a very, very special guest. We're going to talk about a raw food diet, and you're going to know in a minute why I say a raw food diet. We're going to talk about the importance of greens. We're going to talk about dental health. We're going to talk about mistakes to avoid, and we have a special guest. So let me introduce him. His name is Don Bennett. I'm sure you've heard of him, and he actually discovered inconsistencies within the health field, and he realized that doctors, some doctors they smoke, and they don't really know what to eat themselves. So he decided to start researching things himself. All right. And so Don set out to learn the realities of health for himself, seeing the traditional curriculum was filled with biases and hidden agendas. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Misinformation. All right. Missing information, and lots of hurdles that set up, academic tradition. So he took a common sense approach instead. And this allowed him to discover the realities of health. Now, Don Bennett has been studying health and living a healthy raw vegan lifestyle for a while now. How long, Don, exactly?
Oh, almost half a century.
Whoa. You're half a century old?
Just about. Well, no, I'm older than half a century.
Yeah, you are. I guess you are if you've been studying it. And I just want you guys to know that he is a disease avoidance specialist. I loved that, Don. A disease avoidance specialist. And he now shares his wealth of enlightening and empowering knowledge with others for their consideration and benefit. And he is the founder of health101.org, an amazing resource for everyone on earth, not just raw vegans, but everyone who wants to take their health seriously and to the next level. So please help me welcome Don Bennett to the show. What's up, Don?
Hey.
Yes, so nice to see you. And I'm excited because you have a presentation for us and a Mame Sapote shirt as well. So, I'm going to let you take it away. And just so you guys know, I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions about anything, Don is going to be gracious enough to let us ask him live. So thank you very much, Don, for that.
All righty. Okay, here we go. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the importance of greens. We're going to be talking about dental hygiene. We're going to be talking about mistakes to avoid when transitioning from a not great diet to the greatest of diets, and how there's no such thing as the raw vegan diet. Okay. Oh, there you go. I've been researching for about 49 years, almost half a century. I've been vegan for about 48, teaching about health for 27 years, and raw vegan for 22, counseling for 20. Now, these numbers need to be updated. I think I've been using the same slide for years now. That's got to be, I got to update this slide. But I've been researching health issues for almost half a century, but researching, not studying. And that's what's very important, researching and not studying. And I've employed the ethos of science. So if people say, well, what are you basing all this stuff that you say? Well, what are you basing it on? Well, all you got to do is go to my website right there, health101.org /science, and that will show you what the ethos of science is. And I learned this many, many years ago from researchers and my parents. It involves open questioning, no authorities, no biases or personal preferences, an honest desire for the facts, transparency, reliance on the evidence, respect for rational and honest discussion, and a desire to peer-to-peer. That's very, very important. The ability to change your position when the evidence merits it. Another thing that's very important. You can't be a stubborn researcher is not a good researcher. And I'm big on this one, an intolerance of distortion and misrepresentation. Oh, you can ask anybody. It just frosts my cookies when I come across misinformation and distortion of the truth. Here's another big one: a skeptical interrogation of accepted notions. Now, accepted notions could apply to the meat and dairy industries and the grain industry, but it can also apply to the raw vegan industry too, because there is misinformation in the raw vegan industry. No relation to Ms.FitVegan, just it's misinformation. And the last thing, which I think is very, very important, probably the most important out of all of them, is first, do no harm. Medical doctors take this oath. So why shouldn't people teaching any kind of health take this same oath? Okay. Now, the importance of greens, some things to keep in mind. Number one, again, a lot of misinformation out there, but the lower the primates eat more greens, so lower primates eat more greens and less fruit, and the higher primates eat more fruit and less greens. So as you go up that scale, more fruit, less greens, as you go up it. And supposedly, we're at the top. Who would have guessed? But so we technically should be eating even more fruit and less greens than our nearest cousins in the animal kingdom, which would be the bonobos. So just keep that in mind. Now, greens happen to provide more minerals than fruit, and fruit provides a little bit more vitamins than greens. A good thing to keep in mind because of what I'm about to tell you. Now, this is not huge amounts. I mean, we can, if the fruit you're eating is grown in really good mineral-rich soil, you'll get enough minerals from the fruit. You don't have to eat any greens at all. But unfortunately, most of us are not eating those kinds of fruit. So fruit grown by agri-industry is not going to supply you with enough minerals. So what does the body do? The body is like, more greens, need more greens, because the body is able to detect that it can get slightly more minerals from greens grown in the same soil as the fruit. So if you're not getting enough minerals from the fruit you're eating, you will get a Jones for greens. It happens all the time, happened to me, happens to everybody. But the greens that most of us are getting from the store are grown by agri-industry in that same soil that they're growing the fruit in, and the fruit's not providing enough vitamins and minerals, so neither are those greens providing enough minerals. So now what's the body to do if you're not getting enough minerals? Is there a workaround? Yes, there is. Ta-da! There it is. It's a worthwhile, broad spectrum, raw, organic, nutritional complement to the diet. So people might say, well, what's the difference between these greens and the greens I buy in the store? The difference is the greens that you buy in the store are not being grown for their nutritional content. They're being grown for lots of reasons: yield, appearance, growth rate, pest resistance, ability, shelf life, but they're not being grown for nutritional content because it would cost more money for them to do it. So why should they? The government's not forcing them to do it. Consumers aren't asking them to do it. So why should they? You can't blame them. It's a for-profit business. So we have to resort sometimes to doing things like this to be able to get what I call enough of all. But caution, anybody who tells you, oh, you don't need something like these powders and potions and supplements, all you got to do is just eat fruits and vegetables. Well, okay, if it's the fruit and vegetables that you're growing on your own soil, in soil that you know to be good, or every time you want to have a meal, you hop in your time machine and go back 50,000 years and eat from the wild, those fruits and greens, that's fine. But if you're getting store-bought stuff, you will need something like this, assuming you want optimal health. And I know that's an assumption, but that's what I'm assuming. So just be wary of anyone who tells you, as if it's established fact, that you don't need anything, as long as you're just eating an all raw fruit and greens diet. Okay, remember, greens provide virtually no fuel. There's no calories. You'd have to eat so many heads of lettuce to be able to get enough calories for the day. You couldn't. It's not possible. But greens require energy to digest. So if you think on that for a while, you might come to realize, well, we probably shouldn't be eating a lot of greens like the lower primates do. Their bodies are set up to eat a lot of greens, and they do have to eat a lot of greens to get any kind of calories, but they're not that active. They're not as active as the higher primates that are, eating more fruit. They're very active. Now, do you want to be very active? I do. I am. So if we are, fruit and less greens. Also, store-bought greens do not compare to homegrown greens grown in kick-butt soil. Have you ever had greens from someone growing it on really, really good soil, in either in a community garden or at home? And you taste those greens and they're like, wow, one bite is like, this is all I need is one bite. But you could be eating a whole head of romaine lettuce from the store and you don't get the same oomph out of it. And by the way, when we talk about greens, we're not talking about just any greens. In the store, you will find lots of different greens. We're not designed to eat all those greens that are in a store, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So it's the tender leafy greens like the lettuces, and there's all kinds of different lettuces. So that's what we're really designed to eat. Lettuces have nothing but benefits, assuming they're grown in good soil, and there's no detrimental properties as long as they're organically grown. Okay, but something like kale or chard, and don't shoot the messenger here, but kale or chard, yes, have benefits, but also have detrimental properties. I'm a big advocate of eating things that just have benefits and no detriments, no detrimental negative properties to them. Okay, let's talk a bit about, and if you have any questions on that, we're going to do a boatload of Q&A in a little bit. Let's talk about dental issues. Raw vegans have more sugars passing their teeth because they're just eating more fruit, more simple carbohydrates than the average folks do. So you have more sugars passing the teeth, not necessarily a problem unless you have weak dental genetics, and some people do. I do, I know others who do, just very weak dental genetics. We don't have strong enamel. Have you ever known anybody, like maybe from the Scandinavian countries, that just have bulletproof teeth? They've never had any cavities. They're not going to have any cavities ever because they have super strong enamel. That's the way our teeth are supposed to be. But over the centuries, our dental genetics have gotten worse. So some people need to take some precautions. Now, keep in mind that sugars will feed mouth bacteria. And when you feed bacteria, they grow. So the colony gets bigger. And bacteria poop is acidic. So now you see what the problem can be with a high fruit diet, sweet fruit diet. Some teeth are stronger than others, as I mentioned. There's an article that goes into all this on my website, health101.org /art_blog_dental_issues. Sorry, it has to be that way, but it seems to. But it's my dental blog. It's very long, but very entailed. It gives you all kinds of tips that you can do if you are one of these people with weak dental genetics who do get cavities easily. There's a way to prevent them when eating a sweet fruit diet. One of the things, it's my favorite, I do it just before going to sleep at night. I rinse my mouth out with a homemade mouth rinse, and that just dials down the mouth bacteria. So you have less bacteria overnight while you're sleeping. Meaning you have less bacteria pooping, you have less acid going on in your mouth. Another thing you have to be careful of is not mouth breathing when you're sleeping, because that dries out your mouth. And what strengthens teeth? It's not blood supply, because teeth don't get a very good blood supply. It's saliva. Teeth are constantly being bathed in saliva when your mouth is closed. Now, if that saliva is mineral rich because your diet is mineral rich, that's where your enamel gets rehardened, so to speak, and new enamel gets built up. If you're a mouth breather when you're sleeping and your mouth is open, your mouth gets very dried out, and you're not bathing your teeth in that saliva, which hopefully is very mineral rich. So that's something else to keep in mind. Maybe it's something you have to work on. All right, how about some mistakes to avoid when transitioning to a raw vegan diet? First, I recommend when anybody wants to make any changes in their life, health-wise, first pick a number from 1 to 10. That's my first step. Pick a number between 1 and 10. 10 is the best health you can possibly have. The best health your genetics will allow you to have. That's 10. And everybody has a number 10. Now, not everybody's number 10 is the same as someone else's. They're all different, but everybody has a number 10, right? Individually. So if you want to have the best odds of never getting a diagnosis of something life-threatening, well, you'd pick 10. It's a no-brainer. If you're all right getting a diagnosis of something life-threatening, then you can pick one of the lower numbers, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. The lower down you go, the more options you have, the more things you can do. You can At 6, you can overeat on food. At 5, you can eat cooked food. At 4, you can eat cooked animal food. But the lower down you go in those numbers, the higher your odds are of getting a diagnosis one day of some kind of life-threatening illness. And who here, by a show of hands, wants to get a diagnosis of a life-threatening illness later on in life? I'm not seeing any hands go up. Okay. So if you pick 10, it's kind of easier in a way because you have no options. You have to get the right amount of exercise, not too little, not too much. You've got to get the right amount of sunshine, not too little, not too much. You've got to get the right amount of calories, not too little, not too much. Right amount of fat, not too little, not too much. You got to be eating the diet that we're designed to eat and not eat anything that we're not designed to eat. So it kind of makes it pretty simple having less options. Imagine going to buy a car and you have 1,000 options of a color. You got to pick one of those 1,000 colors for the car. You might never end up buying that car because you never end up making that decision. So sometimes having no options is better. So first pick a number from 1 to 10, and whatever number you pick, that will help you make the decisions for how you're going to live your life as far as diet and lifestyle practices. And I work with people who say, no, I want to be an 8. I don't want to be a 10. And sometimes I'll ask why, and they say, because I have a pretty good idea of what I'd have to do to be a 10, and I'm not giving up my beer, and I'm not giving up my pizza, whatever it is. I'm, okay, you want to be an 8? Right now you're living at about a level of 6. So let's bump you up to an 8. Here's the things you need to, you need to stop smoking to get to a level 8. Things like that. So I counsel everybody all throughout that range. So pick a number. Now, then pick which raw vegan diet to do. Now, people are like, what you talking about, Don? Which raw vegan diet? There's more than one. There's multiple ones. And we'll actually go over what they are in a moment. And then go at your pace. Don't go at someone else's pace. Don't try and go too fast is not good. You can overburden your liver. If you're going to lose weight, let's say you're a little overweight and now you're going to get a healthier diet and you're going to lose weight. You don't want to lose weight too fast because there could be stored medicines, drugs in that fat tissue. Now you're losing it and it becomes systemic and you can overburden your liver with detoxification. There's a lot to know about that. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to go too slow either. Well, I'm going to transition over a 10-year period. Yeah, that sounds about right. That might be too slow because your body could be dealing with something semi-serious, trying to keep it from becoming serious. So you don't want to go too slow either. And be careful who you listen to. And this is only because, and I've listened to just about every raw vegan educator out there, and there is raw vegan misinformation. I mean, there's a bunch of raw vegan educators. They teach about 90% the same stuff I teach, the same accurate, spot on information that I teach. About 90% they teach, but they're teaching 10% inaccurate information. They don't know it. Well, some of them actually do know it, but that's another story. But most of them don't know it. But you're believing that everything you're learning from this particular educator is true. So, but yet you're going to be following 10% inaccurate information. Now, you don't want to do that if that's going to have an impact on your health 5 or 10 years down the road. So just be on the lookout for the misinformation. And also be on the lookout for true hunger. As a child, we experience true hunger. But as an adult, most adults don't because they're always eating ahead of it. And what I mean by that is if you wait for true hunger, you'll feel it, and that's the signal to eat. That's what the body does. But if you're eating on some kind of schedule like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I highly advise getting those words out of your lexicon, just do away with them, just delete them. Don't give your meals names. Just eat when you're hungry and don't eat when you're not hungry. Now that sounds very simple, but it can require maybe a year or more to get to that point. It's not something most people can just start doing overnight. But the beauty of it is now you can, if you're waiting for hunger, what if your body wants you to fast for a day or 2 days or 3 or even 4? How does it let you know? It doesn't make you hungry. But if you're always eating ahead of the hunger signals, you're never going to know when your body wants you to fast. That's why when I'm counseling some people and I teach them this and they say, okay, I'm going to wait for true hunger, and they contact me and they call me up and they say, oh, it's been a day, I haven't felt it. I said, okay, it's very subtle. Are you sure? No, I'm sure. I'm being careful. It's been 2 days, nothing. I said, okay, well, look at that. Your body has been wanting you to fast, maybe for years, but you always have been eating ahead of that hunger signal. So and I have an article on my website that talks about what true hunger is and how to recognize it. All right, so it's important also to know what your ideal weight should be, to know how many calories that you need, so you don't undereat on calories and you don't overeat on calories. And I have a great article on my website on calories that talks about this. It helps you figure out what your ideal weight should be based on your bone structure and your activity level. Those two things factor in. And once you know how many calories you should be getting approximately, it's always a ballpark figure, then you can use a program like Chronometer to put in what you've eaten, and it'll tell you how many calories that food represented. Don't use Chronometer to tell you how you're doing with your nutrients, because it's way off. It is terrible for that, but it's very good. It's very spot on for how many calories you're going to be getting if you tell it accurately how much you've eaten for the week. And just do it by the week and then divide by 7, and that'll give you your average calories for the day that you'll be needing. And then once you know how many you need, then you can see, oh, I'm undereating on calories. And maybe you need to undereat on calories a little bit for a little while because you were a little overweight. That's fine, that's natural. But if you're at a normal weight, you don't want to be undereating on calories, because then you can get too thin. And you certainly don't want to be overeating on calories, even if you don't gain weight. There are some people, I used to be able to eat 6,000 calories a day and I'd be thin as a rail. And people are probably thinking, oh, that lucky son of a... No, these people are not lucky, because they're just processing so much additional food that they do not need. It just wears the body out over time. If you only need 2,000 calories a day, you're eating 6,000, don't think, well, I'm lucky, I don't gain any weight. No, that's not it at all. You're definitely not lucky. You'd be lucky if you gained weight from it, because then you'd have to, watch what you eat in order to stay at a normal weight. And watch out for food miscombinations. There are some raw vegan educators who don't even touch upon this because then it starts to be, it starts to restrict the diet a little bit if you have to worry or be concerned about food miscombinations, because different foods need different digestive environments. Okay, mono meals are best. So what's a mono meal? As the name implies, it's a meal of just one food. It's the way all other animals in the wild eat. They eat, animals that eat multiple foods during the week and the month and the year, they're eating only one. You never see them gather them up together for a meal. They just don't. So mono meals are definitely the best. You don't have to worry about miscombinations, because what combines well with a banana? Another banana. And there you go. You just eat bananas until you're done, and you get automatically the best digestive environment, which means what you ate will be given the best service by the body. Now, if you go to this is like the most important link I'm going to give you today, health101.org/reading. There is the top 12 articles of the hundreds and hundreds I've written over this half century that have been voted on by people who have read all my articles. They said, these are the most helpful. So these 12, or maybe 13, 14, are the most helpful ones. They're not the entirety of what I've written, of course, but they're the most helpful ones, especially for raw vegans. So that's why I have it there. And there you'll find an article on transitioning. And at the end of that article, there's like another sub-article that I've written about transitioning. It goes into a little more advanced stuff, but so you can just take it at your pace. All right, let's see, what else we got? Let's talk about how there's no such thing as the raw vegan diet. And some of you might have guessed why I'm saying that already. The raw vegan diet implies that there's only one type of raw vegan diet. There is only one raw vegan diet. But there are 7 different raw vegan diets, right? And we're going to go over what they are right now. There's the ones that include harmful foods. Now, I know some folks that have chosen to eat a raw vegan diet, not because they are trying to deal with an illness or they see the wisdom of it for the future. It's just, it's so counterculture, right? It is the most counterculture diet on the planet. Why? Even though it's the diet we're all designed to eat, but it's the most counterculture because look what 99% of everybody else is eating on the planet. Basically cooked food with animal products in it somewhere. So it's super counterculture, and there's a lot of people out there, they want to be as counterculture as they can be. So they do that. They believe in things like the earth is flat, and they eat unhealthy foods. I've even found raw vegans who smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol and recreational drugs, don't get enough sleep, no exercise. So obviously they're not eating the raw vegan diet for themselves, for their health, I should say. So some raw vegan diets can have harmful foods that present the body with some kind of burden. Like I said before earlier, kale, for instance. Kale is a cruciferous vegetable. We're not designed to eat them. It's not a tropical food. It has beneficial properties, but it also has detrimental properties. So some raw vegan diets can have foods with detrimental properties. Now, what about the number 2 raw vegan diet is the ones that have either too much fat or too little fat. Or even if they have the right amount of fat, the ratio of the omega-6s to 3s is way off, way in favor of the pro-inflammatory omega-6s, and that's not good. Now, you need both the 6s and 3s. You need the 6s to make inflammation when your body wants to make inflammation, but then when it doesn't want the inflammation anymore and it wants to shut it down, you need enough omega-3s to shut it down. That's the anti-inflammatory omegas, the omega-3s, right? So 1-to-1 is a good ratio. You can't get any better than that. Even mainstream nutritionists will say, keep it under 4-to-1, 6s to 3s. So you don't want more than 4-to-1 of the pro-inflammatories to the anti-inflammatories. Now, I would say 3-to-1, but okay, so they say 4-to-1, I say 3-to-1, but 1-to-1 is the best. So if you're 1-to-1 or let's say you're 1-to-2 or 2-to-1, that's perfect, you're golden. But I know people who get a lot of their fat from the dreaded but much beloved avocado. Do you know what an avocado is as far as its 6s to 3s, the ratio? It's 17-to-1. So 17-to-1 is not good. So I know people who ate a lot of avocados and then they just crashed and burned because they had plenty of 6s to make all the inflammation their body wanted to make, but they had a deficiency of omega-3s because the omega-3s they did get were crowded out by all the omega-6s, and they couldn't shut down the inflammation. So they were almost in like a constant state of inflammation because of all the avocados they would eat. So, avocados is one of those things that should be eaten, not like most raw vegans eat them, but sparingly, if at all. I know raw vegans who won't touch them for that reason. I haven't had an avocado in, I don't know, decade, 2 decades now. And I'm still sane. I'm still happy, enjoying life. Okay. The number 3 raw vegan diet is the ones that are less than 100% raw, like 60-40 raw cooked. How many of you have heard of the raw till 4 diet? Raise your hands. Okay, I see 2 hands going up. The raw till 4 diet, it's actually not a diet. It was and still is a transitioning tactic. As you're transitioning from an all cooked diet, pretty much all cooked, to an all raw diet, you would start with breakfast. That's the one to start with, make it all raw. And then you can have whatever you used to have during your afternoon meal or your evening meal. Notice I don't call them lunch and dinner. And then after a while, you make them vegan. The afternoon meal and the evening meal. The breakfast is always vegan. It's fruit. Fruit is going to be vegan. So it's a transitioning tactic, and you get to the point where you're all raw to the last meal of the day. And then your last meal of the day can be something cooked vegan. And you do that for a while until you can get past that point. But 2 people took this transitioning tactic and took it and turned it into a diet complete with t-shirts and merch and the inference that you can be just as healthy eating a raw till 4 diet as you can eating an all raw diet. Now, that's just patently not true, but they gave that impression. And look, if it was true, who in their right mind would not want to have some cooked vegan food as the last meal of the day so you can eat it with your family and your friends and not be so ostracized and be given such a hard time and given so much grief about the fact that you don't eat anything cooked? But it's not true. You can't not be as healthy, just equally as healthy eating one cooked meal a day as you could eating no cooked meals a day. But it's what a lot of people wanted to hear, so it became very popular as a diet, but it isn't one. It's a transitioning tactic, so please keep that in mind. All right, the number 4 raw vegan diet is ones with no attention to food miscombinations. We touched on that briefly a little bit before. If the raw vegan educator who's teaching you doesn't teach you anything about food miscombining, which is what I call it. I don't call it food combining because some some educators call it food combining, and people get the wrong idea, like, oh, there are certain foods we have to eat together and we have to combine them together for the meal to be proper. So it's a little confusing. It's more accurate to call it food miscombining. There are some foods that combine kind of okay, and they're in categories, and you could eat them together, but you don't want to eat cross category, basically. And I have an article on that, and there's a lot of other articles on the internet about food miscombining. But if the raw vegan educator is teaching you about that, the raw vegan diet that he or she is teaching you is not touching upon food miscombining, then that's not one of the healthier raw vegan diets. How about this one? The raw vegan diets with no worries regarding nutrition. We touched upon this a little before, the caution thing that came up on the bottom of the screen. There are raw vegan educators who, for one reason or another, will tell you you don't need any nutritional supplements. You don't, as long as you're eating all raw fruits and vegetables, you don't have to worry about your nutrition. It's wrong. It's being said for a number of reasons, either because of miseducation, because of a philosophical approach to the diet, or the person is a charlatan. And it's sad to say that there are some charlatans in the raw vegan community. I can count them on one hand, which is good, but they're out there. And they're telling people what people want to hear. So people want to hear that they can have a little cooked food in their diet. It's not a problem. They want to hear that you don't need any supplements at all because they cost money. So the charlatans just tell people what they want to hear, or tell them things like, oh, you need to fast, so come to my fasting retreat. When the person really didn't need to fast, they just needed to deal with their nutritional insufficiencies. Okay, the next one is no attention being given to the other basics of health. All right, so diet is just one of about half dozen basics of health. And if you're not giving equal attention to all the basics of health, it's physiologically impossible to be as healthy as your DNA will allow you to be. Now, that sounds like an obvious statement, but there's raw vegan educators out there who are teaching about the diet, but don't make any mention of anything outside of the diet. Not exercise, not sleep, not sunshine, which, by the way, provides nutrients. Now, nutrients that are not part of food provided diet. So if they're not talking about all the nutrients, at least talk about the nutrients if you're going to talk about diet, which is going to include B12, which you may have to get tested for to make sure your body is making it. If not, you're going to need to get a B12 supplement, and the nutrients that come from sunshine. So there's educators who focus on the diet to the exclusion of everything else. And it's really good to make mention of all the other basics of health because they're all equally as important. And the seventh raw vegan diet is the one that I teach, the one I promote, the one that I've devoted a whole Facebook group to. It's the healthiest of the raw vegan diets. So you got to look at it this way. If there's various diets, versions of a diet, right? They're not going to be all equally the same health outcome wise. They just can't be if they have big differences between them. Like some say you need some nutritional supplements, and some of them say you don't need any nutritional supplements. Some mention sunshine, some don't. Some say you can have some cooked food, some say no cooked food. There's going to be different health outcomes. So just based on when I figured this out for myself, because in the beginning I thought there was the raw vegan diet, and I figured it out for myself. I didn't know it from anybody else. I just said, I figured it out when I was about 19 years old. They said, oh, we shouldn't be eating anything cooked. So that's it. I'm not going to have any more cooked food. Now, actually, that happened a little later on in life, but I eventually figured out no cooked food. First came no animals. Later on came no cooked food. But I reasoned that we shouldn't have to cook the foods we eat because we couldn't have 100,000 years ago. So we can't be designed for doing it now. And since I wanted the best health possible, in other words, I picked a 10 on that scale of 1 to 10 when I was like 19 years old, when I realized that we have this scale of 1 to 10, and I'm going to pick a 10. So, but then I started listening to other people teaching about the raw vegan diet. I'm like, oh, great. I thought I was going to be the only person on the planet doing this kind of a diet, but there's other people doing it. They figured it out too. Woohoo! But they were teaching you can either have some cooked food, or even the the American Natural Hygiene Society, that had been all raw, started bringing some cooked food back in when they had a new executive director take over because he wanted more dues to be paid. So he was just interested in the money, and he figures, oh, if we allow some cooked food, so that's how that kind of thing can happen. So now they're teaching cooked food is okay, and then some raw vegan educators wouldn't teach there anymore because they teach 100% all raw. But anyway, so I digress. So that's it. Just pick, if you're picking a 10, you're going to want to pick the version of the raw vegan diet that is the healthiest of them. And this is not a matter of opinion. People say, well, it's just your opinion, Don Bennett, that the one you teach is the healthiest. Yeah, but all opinions are based on something. Are they based on what you prefer to believe, or are they based on facts? Are they based on science? Are they based on empirical evidence? That's what I like to base things on, not on what I prefer to believe. I'd prefer to believe that we can eat cooked food and it won't bother us at all, so that I can have friends again. Well, I have friends, but not as many as I used to have. Okay, so if you go again to this page on my website, the reading page, 13 articles. One of them is about the 7 different raw vegan diets, and it goes into detail, into Don Bennett type thorough, going on forever, hot air detail on each of those 7 diets. Okay, so let's see. Oh, how about some other fascinating tidbits if I have another minute or two? How about, we're not designed to eat everything in the market's produce section. What? Got to understand, the buyers who are buying food for these markets, like Whole Foods or wherever, right? They're not buying based on what we're designed to eat. They're based on what sells and what is being sold. They're based on that too, right? So you can't just assume that everything there is what we're designed to eat, even though it's a produce. In other words, you can't say, all right, as long as I don't have to cook it, it's our food. And that's unfortunately not true. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And I talk about this when I give lectures, wherever I talk. I'll be giving lectures at the Woodstock Food Festival. Woohoo! Coming up in January, end of January. Cannot wait. Need a good recharge, right? Okay, so we're not designed to eat everything in the market's produce section. So it's good to know what to avoid. Just like the rest of the store, right? We walk way past. We give that meat counter a wide berth when we're in the store, don't we? We center on maybe the paper goods aisle and the produce section, basically. How about this one? This is a mind blower. It's possible to get less nutrients on a healthy plant-based diet. What? How can that be? How can it be possible to get less nutrients on a healthy plant-based diet? I'll give you one example. People eating the typical Western diet are often eating processed food. Yes, of course. That processed food is fortified with certain nutrients that the population in general weren't getting enough of. It could be iodine, it could be vitamin D, B12, and they're fortified into those foods. So in an ironic way, people eating the typical Western diet, eating processed, fortified foods, they are the ones that don't really have to worry too much about their D or B12 or iodine levels, right? But we're not eating any processed foods. We're not eating any foods fortified with anything. And D and B12 don't even come from food in the first place. So if we're not being taught to pay attention to being able to get enough D and B12 in our raw vegan plant-based diet, we could be in a lot of trouble. And I've counseled people who got into a lot of trouble on D, B12, and iodine. Iodine is fortified because of iodized table salt. How many of you out there are using iodized table salt? Oh, good. I'm not seeing any hands go up. That's great. However, where are you getting your iodine from? Okay. Now, if you say, well, I add dulse and kelp to my soil, to my meal, to my salad, dulse and kelp. Okay. Are they dried? Yes, no iodine. The iodine sublimates right out, gone. Wave goodbye as it sublimates away. At room temperature, by the way, it doesn't even have to be very hot. So a lot of people that I've counseled and test are low in D, B12, and iodine. Those are the 3 what I call the most problematic nutrients, and the ones that I test everybody that I counsel with for. All right, so that's mind-blowing, right? So anyone that says, no, you can get enough of all the nutrients you need on a raw vegan diet, just keep that one in mind. How about this one? Who here knew that sunshine makes more than just vitamin D in the skin? One hand. Oh, okay, that's very good. Must have come to one of my, yeah, I recognize you. Came to one of my lectures already. Yes, Sunshine makes more than vitamin D in your skin. There's about half a dozen other nutrients which are essential, meaning you have to get them from the outside. The body doesn't make them, and we need them for proper blood pressure control and all kinds of other things, right? To be able to make enough cholesterol, because we're not eating cholesterol, unlike a lot of other people we know, right? So, but we need cholesterol. Cholesterol is important, so the body makes it. In order for the body to make it, we need enough sunshine. How many of you have been taught this by any raw vegan educator? I listen to what they teach. They're not teaching this. So it's very, very important. Now, what happens if you get, maybe you just want to get your vitamin D checked because you hear it's a wise thing to do, because you're not eating food supplemented with vitamin D, you're not taking a vitamin D supplement, and you live up away from the equator enough where the sun isn't strong enough. So you go get tested and the doctor says, ooh, you're low, you're very low. What does the doctor or naturopath or raw vegan educator, what do they usually suggest you do? Take a vitamin D supplement. But the vitamin D supplements that are sold don't have those other nutrients in them. So it's the worst thing you can do is to take a vitamin D supplement, because it'll just normalize your vitamin D level and leave those other ones, equally important ones, to leave them behind. And that's the last thing you want. So you either have to move down to Florida, where you can be closer to the Woodstock Food Festival and me, and then you get really good, strong sunshine. Or if you can't do that, you have to stay north of there, then you need to get a phototherapy device. It's just a fancy light box. It's small. It's an investment in your future health. And then that way, during your vitamin D winter, which is the time of year when the sunshine is not strong enough to make all those nutrients in your skin, you can still have them being made, because the light box mimics just the vitamin producing waves of the sun spectrum, not the damaging UVA waves. Okay, here's some recommendations, and we'll wrap up with: don't follow one educator, just in case that one educator is teaching some incorrect information that you don't know about yet. Find the conflicting information. Now that sounds counterintuitive, but it's really important because it's out there. Trust me when I say it. I've written a whole book about the conflicting information in the raw vegan community. So find the conflicting information. I know you don't like it, but it's good to find it, because you want to see, are you following the information that is, this information or that information, the correct one or the incorrect one? Which are you following? Multi-source education is best. That helps you to find the conflicting information. And learn as a researcher and not as a student. Students don't tend to question what they're being taught. Researchers question everything. And that's really good to do if you're learning in an environment, in a community where there is some incorrect information. And invest for your future health, right? No one here is going to argue the wisdom of investing for your future finances. We know to do that, so you're not left high and dry and with no money when you're older. But what about investing for your future health? It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. If you're a billionaire when you're 60, 65, but you come down with some degenerative disease. I mean, look what happened to Steve Jobs, just as an example. One of the richest people in the world, and he just wasn't living healthfully. And then when he got diagnosed with what he got diagnosed with, he got bad advice. If somebody like myself or Jeanette was there, he'd have gotten different advice, and he still may be alive today. Okay. Now, if you go to, there's the reading link, and there's another one, Love Fruit, that has to do with this particular podcast. Ms.FitVegan. If you go to that one, /Love Fruit, you're going to find out how to get free copies of my ebooks, which are normally for sale. But when you email requesting the free complimentary copies of these ebooks, you have to say that you heard about the offer on the Ms.FitVegan podcast. There's always a catch, isn't there? Okay, so just go to Love Fruit. It'll explain how to go ahead and request your copies of the ebook versions. They also come in paperback, and some people I know don't like reading on their phones because the phone is too small, and they like having a book in their hand. So you can get them as paperbacks too, but unfortunately I can't give those away for free because I got to pay for them. Okay, this is my Facebook group, The Healthiest Raw Vegan Diet. What an apt name. What a good name for the diet, right? The Healthiest Raw Vegan Diet. It's got over 4,000 members now, and it's just because it's full of Well, it's full of stuff, but it's full of correct information is what it's full of, and full of me. Now, don't forget, if you want to meet me in person and ask me all kinds of questions in person, I'll be at the Woodstock Fruit Festival, January 24th to 31st in Miami, Florida. Woohoo! Okay. I want to leave you with one of my favorite expressions. What can do you great harm is what you know that just ain't so. Thank you.
Wow. That was phenomenal, Don. Whoa.
Yeah, people are going to have to watch this one back over a few
Oh,
times.
yes. And that is so nice of you to give away the books. And I'll leave the show notes and all the links in the description, guys, and the comments section. And oh my gosh. And I'll put this on my podcast too, because right now we're on YouTube, but I'll put it on my podcast. And this is exciting. So we have a lot of questions, Don. Do you have a little more time than we planned?
Sure.
Can we go? Yeah, like maybe 30 more minutes? Okay, thank you. Because we got some questions. Okay. So Sherry wants to know, due to the protein controversy in the raw movement, do you believe that older women would benefit from more greens and less fruit as they age, as their activity levels and metabolisms shift? Do you think that older women specifically need more protein?
Well, anybody can need more protein as they age if they weren't living perfectly healthfully to begin with. And what I'll say by that is when people start seeing their metabolisms winding down as they age, we hear, well, that's just, because of natural aging. No, it isn't. It's because the body is just running out of iodine. And your thyroid is what controls your metabolism. It is the master gland for metabolism, the thyroid. Of all the glands in your body, of all the tissues in your body, the organs that require the most iodine is the thyroid. That's the organ that requires the most. Breast tissue would be number 2. Thymus gland, I think, comes in close number 3. But the point is, when you start getting lower and lower and lower, when that iodine level starts going down and down and down over decades, your metabolism starts slowing down. You gain weight, or it's harder to keep the weight off. And then, yes, you can require a little bit more protein, but that's not the problem. It's not natural to require more protein as we age. If anything, we should be requiring a little less because we're not as active. Some people. I mean, I would be, okay, at 90, I'm not going to be as active as I am or as I was at 40. That goes for just about everybody, but hopefully you're still active. So you'll still need about the same amount of protein. And it's easy to get it if you're eating mono meals and you're digesting well. You don't have to necessarily go to greens to get that protein. Fruit has plenty of protein. When do you need the most protein, by the way? And from the moment you're born to the moment you die, when do you think you need the most protein? It's that first year of birth, first year of life, because that's when you're doing the most explosive growing you're ever going to do, okay, as a baby. How much can the protein in fruit provide the baby with enough protein? Well, evidently, yes, because there have been a lot of babies that have been raised on just fruit from birth. So evidently, yes. Between mother's milk and fruit, yeah, plenty. In fact, fruit has more protein than mother's milk. So why would you need more protein than you needed as a baby as an adult? You really wouldn't. So the answer, that was the long answer. The short answer is no, you really don't have to go to greens. Greens are, by the way, harder. I left this out before, but greens are harder to digest than fruit. Meat is harder to digest than greens. So that's benefit of going away from meat, because greens are much easier to digest than meat, but fruit is easier to digest than greens. So a diet of mostly fruit. I mean, do you ever see a gorilla on the National Geographic special? He's just pulling a banana down from the tree and just eating it. Then he pulls another banana down from the tree. He's just sitting there eating bananas from the tree. And then in the middle of a banana, he pulls down a leaf and he starts munching on some of the leaf. Not all of it. It's a big leaf, by the way, banana tree leaf. He just munches on a little bit of it, drops it, and continues eating bananas. Now, he didn't do that because the director of the documentary said, all right, now, Mr. Gorilla, put down the banana and grab the leaf. No, he just did that maybe to get some more fiber in there because he's getting in a lot of sugars. But that's a gorilla. We don't necessarily have to do that. Now, who has to do that? People with diabetes who want to get rid of diabetes and they want to go to a fruit-based diet. They need to eat greens. They need to start the meal with greens, then eat the fruit, and end it with some greens. It's like a fruit sandwich between greens, because the extra fiber from the greens will help slow down the uptake of all that sugar into the bloodstream until their pancreases heal enough to be able to handle that on its own. So that's who needs greens as they age, if they get, if they're pre-diabetic or diabetic. But then you can get rid of that, even though I know we're told you can't.
Thank you for clarifying, Don. That's fascinating. Okay, the next question is from Tessa. Tessa wants to know, Don, how do you feel about colonics?
Well, I'll give you my colonic story.
Yes,
Uh,
please.
so I started making changes to my lifestyle and diet and everything, and I got healthier and healthier. And then I bumped into a colon hydrotherapist, and she said, I'd like to give you a colonic and just check to see, because based on what I used to eat prior to making major changes, if I were to get a colonic then, before making those changes, she was using the Toxygen method, which has what's called a view tube. It's a clear plastic tube where you can see whatever's coming out of you through that tube. She called it BMTV. I thought that was kind of funny. So she goes, I'd like to check it out with you. And I want you to take the bentonite clay and do the whole thing. And I want to give it I want to see what we can get out of you. And we did it once. You take the bentonite clay, then you do it one on Monday, one on Tuesday, and one on Wednesday. And none of those 3 times did anything come out through the tube. And she was shocked. She's saying, eating the way you used to eat, and I don't see anything coming out. There's nothing that was freed up. It just shows you how the body will do that, will cleanse the intestines on its own. Okay? Because I said, well, what do you usually see with people who just eat this typical Western diet? She goes, oh, you see a bunch of shit coming out of there. Sorry if you have to bleep that. Sorry, YouTube. I really am. No, I'm not. So that was my colonic story. So in other words, the intestines will clear themselves out. What you have to be careful of with colonics is, who really needs to do them? If someone's overweight and they want to switch to the healthiest of the raw vegan diets, they probably should do 3 colonics in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of thing, and do the bentonite clay, just to get some, whatever stuff that the colonics can get out, so the body doesn't have to go ahead and get rid of it, because there could be a lot of just stuff stored in there. It would just help with the detoxing. So that's who can benefit from colonics. But anyone who tells you, oh no, you should be doing weekly colonics for the rest of your life, not true. Oh no, you should be doing 2 a month for the rest of your life, not true. Okay, but just doing 3, especially if you're a little overweight, is probably a good idea. But that's it. It should not need to be an ongoing thing, and it can do more harm than good if it's an ongoing thing. But you shouldn't need it as long. Who needs to do it once a month or twice a month? The people who are not making these changes to a healthier lifestyle. The people who continue to eat the typical Western diet and don't get any exercise, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they benefit from a couple of colonics a month.
Yeah, it's funny, Don, how a lot of raw vegans are obsessed with enemas and colonics, but like the standard American is not getting any. This is so funny. So true. Okay. I have a few questions. We have more, but I really want to know, Don, what are the healthiest fats? Because I'm sure everybody out there is like shocked about the 16-to-1 avocado fact that they didn't know. Oh, whoa, 17-to-1.
Yeah, I endeavor to be accurate.
Whoa. Okay. What are some healthier fats?
Okay, here's the problem with fats. Again, go back to what we're designed to eat. Where would you have been 50,000 years ago? Where would you have gotten your fats from then? You would have gotten them from the wild. You would have been in the tropics. You would have been eating tropical fruits like mamey, durian, black sapote. There's a whole bunch. Those are called the creamy tropical fruits. Well, they're creamy because they have, higher fat content than an apple or a pear or grapes. Those are super low fat content. Those are temperate zone fruits. You don't find apples and pears and grapes in tropical regions. You find more of the creamy. So that's where we were supposed to get our fats from, is the creamy tropical fruits. But people who live in temperate zone regions who can't get their hands on durian and mamey, now where are you guys going to get your fat from? What gets turned to right away? The avocado and nuts. Not the best sources. And again, for the reasons I mentioned, that very unbalanced omega-6 to 3 ratio in the avocados. And boy, you think 17-to-1 is high? Look at 300-to-1 of almonds or There's one 1,200 to 1 in favor of the sixes of some other nut. Or so the nuts aren't really the answer, neither is the avocado. So now, is there a workaround? What do you do? Well, of course, if you have the money, you can have mamey and durian and all that stuff shipped up from Miami fruit from Florida to wherever you are. Most people can't afford to do that. So what's the workaround for them? You want to get the healthy fats in a good ratio. So you throw some seeds into your smoothie. That's one of the best ways. You can have a little avocado here and there, but not a lot because you don't want to unbalance that 6:3 ratio. But if you take equal amounts of, for example, hemp and chia seeds, one is 4 to 1 and one is 1 to 4. So for the mathematicians out there, it's a 1 to 1 ratio. You can't get better than that. Now you got to grind the chia seeds. You don't really have to grind it's kind of hard to grind hemp seeds because they get so mushy, but you can throw the hemp seeds in a blender and just, 3 seconds of high speed blending, boom, they're blended in. And then you grind the chia seeds, just what you're going to use, and blend and pulse them in right away. You don't want to leave them exposed to air once you grind chia seeds. And now you've got some healthy fats in there. Is it enough? Is it all the healthy fats we need? No, sadly, we need some saturated fat. Oh no, I've heard saturated fat is bad. It's horrible when it's animal-based. When it's plant-based, the body needs some. It actually requires some. What's a good way to get it from? A good place to get it from? Coconut pulp, right? You just get a fresh Thai coconut, slice open the top, you don't eat the whole thing like a lot of people do. That's way too much fat. You just put a couple of tablespoons into your smoothie once a week. That takes care of your saturated fat needs. You don't need to do it every day. Now people say, well, I can't get whole fresh coconut. Now what? Now what do I do? Okay, you can probably definitely get coconut oil. I'm not a big fan of oils, but you put a teaspoon of coconut oil in your smoothie once a week. Okay, so now you're going to get some saturated fat. Not the best way to get it, but again, it's a workaround. So either move to the tropics or move to Florida where you can get from Miami fruit, or use these different workarounds. A little bit of avocado here and there, coconut pulp once a week, hemp and chia a couple times a week. And what do you put the hemp and chia in? What kind of smoothie? Banana smoothie. Now, people are saying, I can hear them saying, that's a sweet and a fat. You're not supposed to combine sweet and fat, Don Bennett. How dare you say that? What is mamey? What is durian? That's sweet and fat. It's combined together. There's no problem combining it together if it's in one food that you eat at the meal. But if you're eating a meal of grapes and avocado, just call the ambulance in advance, because you're trying to combine these two things together. You start the meal with one of them. No one's going to put equal amounts of grapes and avocado in their mouth each time. No, you're going to start the meal with one of them. Your digestive system will get set up for that thing, and then you follow it with the other one, and like all hell breaks loose. That's where sweet and fat doesn't combine well. But in nature's perfect thing, like a mamey, oh my God, of course. So all you're doing by adding those seeds into the banana smoothie is making a fattier banana. Are there fattier bananas? Yes, but most people have never had a Namwa banana. Oh my God, those are my favorite bananas, Namwa. They're creamier than the Cavendish ones that you find in the stores. Creamier equals fattier. So that's all you're doing. And then if you add Daily Green Boost that I showed you before in the presentation, add that into the smoothie, especially on St. Patty's Day, because now you have a green smoothie. But if you add that in there, now you have a slightly fattier, healthier banana, more nutritious banana. Because believe me, the Cavendish bananas, they're horrible when it comes to nutrition, because they're just mass crop grown next to each other, and the soils aren't being taken care of. Why'd they pick Cavendish to grow and not Namwa? Namwas don't travel as well. Cavendish travels very, very well. And that's why they picked that one. But no, if you can get Namwas, oh boy, believe me. So there are workarounds to get the healthier fats and the right amounts, so that you're okay and you have enough of the omega-3s and 6s in a proper ratio, blah, blah, blah. And that's what we talk about in my Facebook group and at the Woodstock Food Festival.
Yes, I'm excited to see you at Woodstock. And for everyone that doesn't know, we had Jamie, the founder of Daily Green Boost. We had him on Monday. So check out the video. It's like 2 videos ago. Jamie was the founder, and he shared the story of how you guys met and it was so amazing. And I just loved hearing that.
And
So
Jamie, bless his heart, has been donating Daily Green Boost to the Woodstock Fruit Festival for years. And it's been in the kitchen, and you know, it's there for people to add into their meals. So yeah, so you get the foods of our biological adaptation and the nutrients too when you come to the Woodstock Fruit Festival.
yes, absolutely. And now I have another question. Who are the raw vegan charlatans? No, just kidding, Don. Just
Oh,
I want to ask, but
no, I
I
don't
don't.
mind talking about it. And I do tell people privately and in my Facebook group, but in a venue like this, some of them can be, look, imagine if you were a charlatan and word starts getting out, well, you don't want that. You don't want your profits diminished. So you're going to take action. You're going to spend money in order to be able to continue making money. What are they spending money on? Lawyers and suing people or getting lawyers to tell YouTube to take down my video that I made. So you got to be careful. It's just important to know that they exist,
Yes.
that they're doing what they're doing, not for your benefit. They're doing it for their benefit. And sadly, some of them can seem so sincere and down to earth and caring, but that's what makes a good, successful charlatan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very charming.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Okay, now a real question. So everyone wanted to know about the true hunger thing, and I can totally relate, Don. So can you please tell us, like, if you're always hungry, how do you know if it's true hunger? Like some people in the audience, including me, sometimes I don't know the difference. I feel like I can always eat. So can you
Well,
explain
yeah,
that?
sure. And it's important to understand that we eat food for two reasons, two basic reasons: fuel and nutrition. It's the only two reasons we eat physiologically. A lot of people eat also for over here, emotional reasons. But no, for physiological reasons, only two reasons: fuel and nutrients. Now, the way nature makes food is if you eat nature's food from out in the wild to get the amount of calories that you need in a day, with the amount that's normal for a human being, you're guaranteed to get plenty of nutrients, more than the body needs, because the body can either get less than it needs, more than it needs as far as nutrients are concerned, or exactly what it needs. And it's impossible to get it. You can't eat in such a way where you get exactly the right amount of calcium and phosphorus and vitamin A that your body requires, no more, no less. You can't eat that way. So the only two choices really are getting less nutrients than you need or more nutrients than your body needs. Which do you think your body would pick? More, not less, more. What about money? How much money do you want coming in per month? Enough, more than you need to pay your bills, or less than you need to pay your bills? Well, not less, then you're in trouble. Same thing with the body. The body wants more than it needs, and that guarantees it gets enough. And what does it do with the extra? It either stores it or just excretes it in your urine, your feces, whatever, your breath. So it wants more than it needs. So it's important. No, I forgot your original question.
Oh, so the original question is how can we know the difference between
Oh,
true hunger?
Right.
Yeah.
So you,
Yeah.
so you eat for two reasons: fuel and nutrients. So if you're eating food that has plenty of nutrients, you're not going to get hungry for nutrients. You're going to get hungry for calories, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So you'll eat a meal, it'll be enough, and then when your body wants to fill up that calorie reserve again, it'll give you hunger again. But what if the foods that you're eating are nutritionally subpar? They're not supplying enough of all. Your body's going to be hungry like all the time. It's going to have you eat to get enough calories, but then it's going to say, the other department in your brain says, okay, that's great that you got enough calories, but I didn't get enough magnesium, boron, silicon, and whatever other things. So, and the other department says, okay, food apostat, tell them to keep eating. Tell the owner of the body to keep eating. And that's what happens. You keep eating. Look at people who are obese. They don't need to eat for calories. They have tons of stored calories on them, but they're hungry. They're actually physiologically hungry, not emotionally hungry. They don't want to eat for emotional reasons. They're hungry. How can they? So they're not hungry for calories. What's the only other thing they can be hungry for physiologically? Nutrients. So you get good nutrients into an overweight person, an obese person. It makes it so much easier for that weight to come off, especially when you normalize their metabolism with one of those nutrients being iodine, and they get the metabolic rate to where it needs to be. The pounds just melt off, not too fast because you don't want to melt them off too fast, but Yeah, so that's why some people are hungry all the time. They're just not getting enough nutrition. It's the joke about Chinese food, right? You eat Chinese food, you're hungry an hour later because the Chinese food has no nutrition in it. It's 100% cooked, and it wasn't nutritious to begin with. So yeah, it provided some calories. That's great, but your body also needs nutrition, and it provided none. And some nutrition was needed to digest that food. So now you're at a nutrition deficit. If you can imagine that, that's crazy. I alluded to that a little bit in my presentation, but to have a nutritional deficit, you get that from eating nutritionally devoid food. Your body needs to use some nutrients to do digestion, to make the digestion enzymes and all that stuff. And so you cause more of a deficiency, a nutrient deficiency, by eating nutrient insufficient foods. It's crazy, but yeah, so that's why.
Yes, thank you so much, Don. That makes sense. We have some dental questions. Can you please share your homemade mouth rinse that you spoke about?
Well, yeah, it's basically just it's called a white iodine mouth rinse. It's potassium iodide. It's a liquid, and you mix it with water and you put it in a bottle with leaving some air at the top so you can shake it. So you buy this potassium iodide online or at the health food store. Or CVS, I think, sells potassium iodide, but it ends in IDE. And so what else ends in IDE that dentists use to strengthen teeth enamel? Fluoride, right? IDE. It's in the same family on the periodic table of the elements. So rather than using fluoride, which our body does not need, we're supposed to be getting iodide from the foods we eat, but most people don't get enough, and they're not using iodized table salt anymore. So now where are they getting it? So yeah, so you want to do that mouth rinse, which it's a twofold thing, that mouth rinse. It dials down the mouth bacteria, and it helps to strengthen the enamel because of the iodide. So the iodide serves a dual purpose. They sell it. You can buy it already made, but you'd be throwing away tons of money over the course of a year. You can make it yourself. It's just water and potassium iodide in a bottle. You shake it up. You take a swig, leave it in your mouth for 10 minutes while you're sitting there watching TV or reading a book. Well, you can't be having a conversation, obviously, or the other person's going to get very wet. You just take that mouthful and just hold it in there for 10 minutes, swish it around a little bit, force it between your teeth a little bit, and do that just before going to sleep. And that dials down the mouth bacteria, helps to strengthen the enamel, and that it does wonders. It's like the best thing you could do.
Thank you so much.
And the recipe for that and the links to how to get the iodide from the potassium iodide is in my dental blog, which I gave the link before.
Yes, I'll leave that below. Last question about teeth health. Can we reverse a tooth infection, Don, with a healthy diet?
So the scenario is a person eating an unhealthy diet, living an unhealthy lifestyle, gets a tooth infection and goes, oh, I don't want to go to the dentist. I'll just change my diet like this. It would take so long to do it. And unfortunately, the cavity can grow faster than you can improve your health. So no, in that scenario, it's just better to go to the dentist and have him, stop the decay and fill it with hopefully a biocompatible material. Obviously not mercury amalgam fillings. So you just want to find a dentist who will not do mercury amalgam, who will admit that, no, I don't do those. I mean, if you can find a dentist who goes against the ADA and says, no, I don't do those, that's the dentist for you. Because others will say, well, I still do them for people who want them, but I will do composites if you want them. No one goes in and asks, Doc, I want a mercury amalgam filling. Do you do them? Yes, of course I do. No, they're just doing it to go along to get along. No, you want a dentist who can do things like an ozone injection. And that's not something a lot of dentists do, but if you got a slight infection, and not, the cavity is very small. So maybe the question that the person was wondering is, can cavities fill themselves back in? If you're already healthy, but you have a cavity because you're eating sweet things, you have weak dental genetics, yeah, the cavity can fill back in if you start now taking care of your teeth, doing the iodide mouth rinse, brushing properly. There's a few other things you can do. Like if you eat things with lemon or lime in it or citrus, oranges. If you eat an orange, the best thing you can do for your teeth is after you eat the orange, don't brush them, because your enamel was just softened by the citric acid in the orange. So before brushing, or just, you don't even have to bother to brush, just rinse your mouth out with regular water. That will reharden the enamel that was softened by the citric acid in the oranges. So there's just little things to know, but small cavities have been shown to fill back in. Even though dentists will say it never happens, because it doesn't happen to them, because they don't get anybody eating a raw vegan diet, getting enough sleep and all this, sunshine, vitamin D, and all those other nutrients that the sunshine provides. But small cavities have been shown to fill back in. Big ones, no, you want to get them taken care of. And if there's an infection, because you can have a cavity without an infection, but if there's an infection, see if you can find a dentist who will do an ozone injection before, like, pulling the tooth or root canal. Root canals are the things you want to avoid at all costs. So if you can avoid a root canal or a post and a implant, those are the things you want to avoid. And sometimes an ozone injection into the gum, sometimes they'll just put it on the tooth if it's a light infection, but sometimes they'll inject it into the gum. You find a dentist that does ozone injections, that's the dentist to hang on to.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Don. Okay, just two more questions. So Jordan wants to know, how does Don feel about food combining with juices and smoothies? Does he support juicing and smoothies?
Well, what I advocate is chewing. Chewing is important for a meal. Chewing and a meal go together like this, right? And why? Chewing is what signals the brain to check out what you've just put in your mouth and create a digestive environment for that. That's what chewing does. So chewing is actually what starts the digestive process really going. When you chew, it sees what's in your mouth. It even adjusts the saliva pH also. So if you're chewing watermelon compared to chewing a mouthful of nuts, you'll have two different saliva pHs. If you take samples out and have them tested, which I've seen done, yeah, they're two different pHs, because the body automatically knows, oh, this one needs a lower pH for the nuts. No, this is watermelon. It can have a higher pH. So, but it starts with chewing. So when you drink water, which is the only thing we're designed to consume without chewing, right? Water doesn't need digestion. That's fine. So it all works out. Water just flies right through, out of the stomach, right through the small intestines, right into the large intestines, where it's taken into the body. Because when it's in your intestines, it's not really in your body yet. It's just in your intestines, which is a tube with an opening at two ends, one up here, one down there. Okay, so the only thing we're designed to eat, or designed to consume rather, that doesn't need chewing is water. Okay, now let's talk about juices. What is a juice? We know what it is. We know what it's made from, but the body does not understand juice. We didn't evolve with juices. So when you consume a juice, the body sees it as a liquid coming in. Okay, liquid coming in, let it go right out. So no digestion. It's not going to hold that juice in the stomach while it digests it. Let it fly right through the small intestines. That's the last thing you want. Normally, a meal is held up in the small intestines. There's a door at either end of the small intestines. So there's a door where the small intestines meet the large intestines. So that door will be closed when the meal gets in there, and it'll hold it up in there for a period of time so that the nutrients in that digested meal can be pulled into the body, okay, into the bloodstream. But if you're drinking a juice, flies right through the small intestines, right into the large intestines, and you're not getting as much nutrition out of that juice as we've been led to believe. Now, what juices do is make it they free up the digestive system from working as hard as it's been working. So if the digestive system needs for any healing to be done within it, right? Juices are great because they don't need digestion. They do, but they're not going to get any. Let's put it that way. They're just going to fly right out of the stomach. It gives the stomach a break, time to heal, especially people who are dealing with ulcers. They don't, there's times and places for juicing. And by the way, there's no such thing as a juice fast. So folks, stop using that term. There's no such thing as a juice fast. A fast is putting nothing but water into you. Nothing but water. So a juice fast is, you're not really fasting, because the body does start ramping up a little bit, not as much as it should. If you were eating the oranges instead of juicing them and drinking the juice, it's a lot better for the body. Let's put it that way. Now smoothies, as long as you can choose a smoothie, smoothies are great. how to chew the smoothie. You can make it thick enough where you kind of like, okay, I can see chewing this, even though I don't really have to. I can see, because I want to mix it with the saliva because it's very thick. So it forces you to chew it. That starts the process. That's great. What about a smoothie that's not as thick? What can you do? After you make the smoothie, cut up little tiny chunks of celery, little teeny tiny chunks of celery, and stir it into the glass of smoothie. When you take a mouthful of that, oh, you're going to want to chew that. Your mouth is immediately going to say, what? No, don't you dare swallow this. There's little chunks of stuff in here. I have to chew them. So you'll definitely chew that. So that's a trick to get you to chew a mouthful of a smoothie that normally you wouldn't chew. But chewing is just very important. It just starts all these proper processes going. It makes the doors open and close or wherever they have to do, as opposed to drinking. So I'm not a big advocate of juicing. Now, here's another problem with juicing. When you make a juice from a sweet fruit, what are you taking out of the juice? The fiber. What is the role of fiber in the body, especially with sweet fruit, is to modulate the uptake of the sugars from the sweet fruit into the bloodstream, to slow them down, to make sure they don't go in too fast. That's what the fiber does. You take out all that fiber and you've juiced a sweet juice, like orange juice with no fiber. That's really hard on the pancreas because it can make, insulin levels go nuts, and the sugars do get absorbed into the body. You may miss out on some of the nutrients going through the small intestines as quickly as they do, but the sugars, no, they're going to go in, and there's no fiber to slow them down. So people, they're trying to not be pre-diabetic. Sweet fruit juices are not great. Green juices, like lettuce, you make juices out of lettuces, they're fine. You can add a little bit of an apple to it to give it a little bit of sweetness. And that isn't the same as juicing 8 apples. But that's where I stand on it. If you want optimal health, just if you need to give your digestive system a break, yeah, juicing is fine. Green juice is a little bit of apple in it, that's great. As long as it's not kale that you're using, as long as it's lettuces. See, but you can learn all this in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. And I want to, before the last question, Don, thank you. I want to encourage everyone to join Don's Facebook group. That is an amazing resource where you can, meet so many like-minded people and also be part of a community and just get knowledge and education. And don't forget to click the link below, thehealth101.org/lovefruit. Don has been so kind enough to, oh yes, thank you, Don. So there's the link for the Facebook group, which I'll leave below as well. And Don has been so kind enough to share his books for free with you guys, his ebooks. And so all the resources will be below. And last question, there are many more. Sorry, guys, I couldn't get to them, but I promised Maria I would ask. Don, can kids be healthy eating a raw food diet?
Yes. Next question. No. Yes, absolutely.
I have more actually.
Well, I'll be short with this one, so we can get one or two more in. Yes. Thank you. Yes, if they're eating the right raw vegan diet. Remember, there's 7 different ones. So if they're being given, you've heard horror stories of people eating, feeding their kids the raw vegan diet, little ones, and the little ones go to the hospital. They weren't paying attention to all the things they needed to pay attention to because they learned about the wrong raw vegan diet. So as long as you're feeding the kids, and people have done it. Ask Ann Osborne, ask Karen Ramsey. There are people who have done this with newborn babies all the way up, no problem.
Thank you. Great answer. And I think that's a good way to put it. They learned about the wrong raw vegan diet. That's a good way to put it. So Don, you're very fit. Can you please tell us, like people don't know, but I met you in person. You're very fit. You have abs and you're a very fit person. Can you share like what you do for exercise?
I do a lot of walking because again, I think back, like when I started thinking about, well, what should I be doing? This was like 40 years ago, just thinking on my own, not knowing about anybody yet. Well, what should I be doing? What would I have been doing 50,000 years ago? I would have been doing walking. I would have been climbing some. And every once in a while, I would have run as fast as I could because I'd be being chased by a lion. Okay, so that's what I should do today. I should do mostly walking, some climbing, and then once a week, make believe I'm being chased by a lion or a bear. Now, people say, well, that's silly. You can't outrun a lion or a bear. but you don't have to. You just have to outrun the person you're running with. That's the key to that.
I got
So
it.
yeah,
Took me a minute.
so but these are what I'm getting at is what are we designed to do? Just like for diet, what are we designed to eat? How are we designed to sleep, etc. So how are we designed to get physical activity? Just do that. What's the most likely thing you're going to be able to do when you're 95 as far as forward motion? Is it running, walking, and what would it be? Probably walking. So do a lot of walking now so you can make sure that when you're 95, you're going to be able to do a lot of walking, not as much walking as you do now, and you won't probably be able to walk as fast as you do now when you're 95, but you'll still be able to walk. How many 95-year-olds can't walk? A lot of them. So do the thing that you're going to be doing the most of or able to be doing the most of when you're older. Do that now. Do plenty of that now, which is walking. But good news, that's what we're designed to do the most of, is walking. Now, you can use some wisdom and do a certain type of walking that I call spirited walking. It's walking with a spring in your step. You're actually bouncing up and down as you're walking. This moves tons of lymphatic fluid. A lot of people today, their bodies are working on some cancerous cells, which are still 15 years away from getting a diagnosis of cancer, but you never want to get to that diagnosis. So really, any extra moving of the lymphatic system is great. Your body is going to thank you so much for that by not allowing you to get to that point where you get that diagnosis. And that's just walking with a spring in your step. It's called spirited walking. I have an article on that on my website. It's just bouncing up and down as you walk. You won't be able to walk as fast. And I caution you, after a while, walking this way, you will start whistling. And then you look around, there'll be people staring at you. Like, what's up with that guy over there? Look at, he's walking like, did you just win a lottery? That's what they'll say. I had it said to me once, did I just win a lottery? And I said, yes, because I wanted them to feel comfortable. Like, oh, okay, that explains why he's the happiest man on the face of the planet, whistling and bouncing with spring in his step and all that. But that's just a healthy way to walk. Jogging and running, no, not so much. We're not really designed to do that.
Yes, thank you. Actually, JC said, I ran into Don in a grocery store recently. He looks very fit in person. Quite inspiring to meet him. So just so you guys know, it's not just me that thinks Don is fit. Don is fit. Okay, very, very, very last question because we have to go. But Donna wanted to know, what are some other nutrients that we get from the sun besides vitamin D?
Yeah, there's cholesterol sulfate, which is one that's what's made in the body from those waves hitting your skin. And we need cholesterol sulfate to be able to make cholesterol because we, like I said before, we do need it. There's nitric oxide. That's very important for blood pressure control and a few other things. I think they do have that as a supplement now, but why? Why buy nitric oxide supplement when you can get it from Strong Enough Sunshine or a phototherapy device? That's the phototherapy device. It's just a light box that makes the nutrient producing rays from the sun. Doctors in other countries will prescribe those and they'll be paid for by the country's national health care. Not in the United States, not in the UK. So we got to get it on our own, but it's an investment for your future health. It's very, very important. So nitric oxide is another one. Cholesterol sulfate. Oh, there's like 3 or 4 more. But you know what? I don't care. The only thing important enough to know is that it makes more than just D. That's all you really need to know when you come right down to it, right? Getting into the specific ones and what they do is called getting into the weeds. And I hate getting into the weeds because I've got so much to talk about. That's so much non-weed stuff to talk about.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Don. So guys, click the resources below that Don has so kindly provided for us. Don will also be speaking at the Woodstock Fruit Festival. He's been one of the pioneers for the festival for the entire time, right? For the last 11?
I've been there since the very beginning.
11 years, and he's going to be there so you can meet Don, ask him your questions, attend his talks. By the way, we are sold out of tickets for the Woodstock Fruit Festival, but you can get on the waiting list. So go to our website, thewoodstockfruitfestival.com, and get on the wait list because somebody might cancel. Somebody might have a change of plans. And so I'm really excited to see your talks this year. And thank you very, very much, Don. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I wonder if we can, for those people who wanted to come but couldn't get in because it's a smaller venue,
Yes.
could we televise some of the talks?
I tried, Don. That was my idea, and I was going to be in charge of it. But maybe you can help me um, convince someone to do that, because I think that would be a great idea to do it on Zoom. To televise it for people all around the world. But
Yeah, at least one live. Oh, at least one live one. We'll get her to agree to one live one.
okay, thank you, Don. You're very persuasive, so I believe in you. Thank you very much, Don Bennett. You're amazing, living legend. And can you just tell everyone, how old are you now?
I am. Wait, don't tell me. 60. I'm going on 69.
Crazy. Whoa, that is ridiculous. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Don. Thank you, everybody for watching the live and who's watching the replay. If you like this kind of content, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and do me a favor and share this. If you liked it, share this with one person that might not have seen it. Okay. Just share it with one person. That is how you can repay the favor for this amazing, amazing presentation. Thank you so much. And I'll see you soon. Thank you, Don.